Hello, this video is to demonstrate and discuss a 1972 Univox U50 50 watt PA amplifier. The schematic is dated 1972 and the example that I have is also dated 1972. In spite of this, I have noticed what appear to be a couple of small differences between the schematic and the amp. Namely, I think the actual amp has some slightly different values of capacitors in the power section. But this is a hybrid amplifier. You can see here is channel 1. It's also 4 channels. Channel 2, 3, and 4 are here, and they are identical to this channel. These channels get mixed together. There is a master volume right after the mixing. The input stages are the amplification is done with transistors. You can see 2 transistors for each channel, and then after the mixing stage, after the master, there's 2 more stages of gain via transistor. After that is when the tube section kicks in, and this is the tube power section. The power is handled by 2 6L6 GCs. And the phase inversion is handled by a 12AX7. This amp does have reverb as well. The reverb is taken care of, is driven by 3 transistors of its own. There's another transistor on the uptake for the reverb. And that is pretty much okay. Here are the guts of this Univox PA head, and one of the first things we'll notice here is that all of the power caps are, all of the caps period are still original. It appears as if this thing has never been cracked open, and everything inside is original. This still had the original 2-prong power cord, which I have clipped in preparation for a 3-prong. The power caps, again, are all original. You can see here, though, if I flip this thing around, we can see that these caps are not in good shape. We've got one punctured through here, leaking. These are bubbling as well. You can see some bubbles on this one. This one here is bubbled out and leaking. This one is leaking as well. So all these power caps are just bad, and will be replaced. This one here is bubbling also. And again, these are all, the schematic calls for 80 microfarads on these, and these look like they're all 60s. I haven't clipped them out, but the rest of them look identical. So I'm thinking these are all 60s. There's another one tucked in behind here. I don't notice any physical leaking on it, but I'm sure it's not in great shape either, so it will have to go. This is a bit different than some of the other Univoxes I've seen from this period. It's using some different caps. It's using these yellow caps, and I believe these are made in Taiwan. I've got some other ones in my parts drawer, and I think this style was made in Taiwan, but they may have been Japanese as well. But these ought to still be good caps. The ones I had, at least, they were vintage, and they seem to be in pretty good shape. So I've got pretty high hopes for those two. I think they'll be okay. This one here, this is obviously, anytime you see one like this, this style with the paper cover over the top of it, these usually are in pretty bad shape. Even though this one is not in a position of really high voltage, it's only a 35 volt rating on this one. It's still leaking all over the place. You can see, maybe you can see, I don't know, there's pretty bad glare, but you can see here it's bulging out, and that's not in good condition. And even if it wasn't bulging out like that, this would be one of the first things I would replace in this amp upon seeing it. I don't think I've ever seen a cap of this style and this sort of vintage that was still good. These are almost always bad. These caps are probably going to be okay. I'll check them out after I get this amp recapped. We'll fire it up and see what it does. But I think all these littler caps are probably going to be all right. You'll see here here's one of the boards for the inputs or for one of the channels. Here's another channel board here. So there's I think this is actually channel 2 and that's channel 4. The other channels are actually underneath with the tubes, and we'll see those in a moment. The back of the amp, you can see here there's an echo and there's 2 speaker outs. Not sure exactly what the echo does. I will take another look at the schematic here, but that is probably, I'm guessing that's probably some sort of preamp out, or that might be some sort of output for the reverb section. Don't know yet, but we'll check that out and see what that's all about. Here's something interesting as well. You'll see here there's a big. You might be wondering what this thing is. It looks a bit weird, but if you remove it, you'll see it's actually covering a transistor. So that's a noise shield for that transistor. Kind of clever. It's not something I'm used to seeing. Overall, it's a fairly clean amp. There isn't a lot of dust. There is a little bit of patination and some corrosion on the. You see the traces here are going a bit green on these copper traces. So I might get a brush and just kind of scrub those a bit lightly. The same thing here. But beyond replacing all these caps and replacing the 3-prong cord here, we should be able to deal with this one in pretty short order. I did go ahead and install some new JJ power tubes, and we'll flip the amp over here and check those out as well. Okay, here's the top side of the chassis with the new power tubes, 6L6GCs. Here is the single 12AX7 right beside it. Here we have the output transformer. Nice size output transformer on this thing. Here's the power transformer over on this side. These are the leads for the reverb, which sets in top of the cabinet. Here are channels 1 and 3 up on top with their own input boards. These are the switches for the reverb to turn the reverb on and off. The pots date to about the 35th week of 1972 on all these. Let's see. Yeah, the 35th to the 40th week, right in that kind of range. So this could have been the end of 72, and that may have been why they had those changes. It looks like the date on the schematic is for July of 1972, so they had a little bit of time between the creating that schematic and this actual example of this amplifier. So yeah, they probably reduced those values on the power caps in that time frame. Here's the front of the amp. Again, you can see it has 4 channels. Here's 1, 2, 3, channel 4, master volume and master reverb, pilot light, on-off switch, and this has reverse polarity, which won't matter when we put that 3-prong in, and it has a 3-amp fuse. So yeah, that's the amp out. Here also is the, please excuse the glare, let's adjust our lighting here. This is the cabinet that it comes in. You can see there's some shielding on the bottom. There's also a reverb tank that resides up in the top, and there are your leads for the reverb tank. So yeah, let's replace some caps and let's replace a power cable and see how this thing sounds. Okay, this video is to demonstrate the tone of an early 1970s Univox model U50 PA amplifier. The U50 was a hybrid amp, meaning the input stages were amplified with transistors, while the output was all tube. This one has a brand new pair of JJ606s, 606 GCs actually, in the output for 50 watts output. This has reverb. There are 2 slots for speaker. Here is an echo output. And I think what that does is that I think that outputs just the reverb, but I'm not sure. I'll have to look at the schematic. But at any rate, this has 4 channels. I'm really only using 1 channel, but I have modified this amp so that you can plug into 1 input. All the channels are jumpered together, so you can actually dial in a little bit more transistor input gain by dialing up the volumes on the other channels, and all the the volumes and all of the bass and treble EQ works on every channel now by plugging into just 1 input too. So right now the volume on channel 1 is up about halfway. I've got the volumes on the other channels pretty well cranked. I'm added some bass on each of these other channels as well to just beef up the bottom end. I've got the reverb up to around 7 and the master volume is at 6. 1970s Univox U50 PA amplifier.